Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. I actually watched this episode last week, probably Friday or something. Tried to do a reaction video to it, fell asleep. Tried to do a reaction video to it the day after, got sleepy. Then I was like away all weekend and also sleepy. Um, so we're doing it now. Somewhat from memory. I mean, we watched it again on Friday and Saturday to try and do a reaction video on Saturday before I fell asleep. So my memory is gonna be a bit fuzzy, but the I have a curse or benefit of waiting that long, depending on which way you want to go about it. Oh, my video is unlisted. Well, that's not very good. Let's change that very quickly. I didn't realize that. The I've been able to see a lot of criticism about this episode. Some of it, a lot of it is very, very ridiculous criticism, to be honest. And I don't even know if it's worth kind of even going to. So so this is basically the flip episode to Destiny. So we had Destiny and that's his choice, and now we're kind of matching on the split titles. And I assume tonight's episode will also have a split title. So rather than seeing everything from the perspective of Destiny, we now see how choice can influence things. And I think this episode is very much Star Wars playing around with the Rashomon effect that was used to controversial usage in The Last Jedi, because I mean controversial, I meant people just didn't understand it. And it kind of happens here again. And there's a lot of backlash about how, this is primarily portraying the Jedi as incompetent or stupid or evil. And it's like, well, I mean, look, I don't know where in the degradation of media analysis we forgot that characters can have flaws. And in fact, characters should have flaws, because that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes the plot happen. That's what gives us the situations that arise that are difficult, but let us analyze aspects of human nature. That's the point of fiction. It kind of bothers me that we're like, oh well, these are the heroes, therefore they can't be flawed, because what is that telling us? And it's like, it's like, the showrunners are trying to stamp on these are fictional characters. They are plot devices. They are elements in a story designed to tell you something. There's a clear message here that is a commentary on an institution. I mean, I'm not saying that Acolyte is like the most A-star written piece of TV, but I'm also saying that neither is Star Wars this as a collective. Like, there are exceptions, there are exceptional things, but Star Wars has always been Pulp Fiction. It has always been a rip-off. It has always been a reimagination of tropes and genres. It relies heavily on rehashing, and that's not a bad thing. That is what it does well, and it does it well. There is nothing, what is new and unique and special about A New Hope isn't anything to do with the plot or the stories or anything. The New Hope is basically your very atypical adventure story. You've got a farm boy who becomes a knight. You've got a space wizard. You've got a princess. You've got a literal princess. You've got an evil dark lord. A empire. It's all basic space nonsense, space fantasy nonsense. It's just the fact that they execute it very well is what makes it special. The writing in Star Wars has never been spectacular. Why are we expecting high art from Star Wars? That's not what makes Star Wars special. Come on, people, grow up. So the fact that people are like, oh, it's badly written, or that they're nitpicking elements and lines, and like, oh, no one would speak like that. Yeah, because it's fiction. None of these are real people. But in the grand scheme of like Star Wars properties, and especially recent properties, the Acolyte is very much far and beyond like good quality TV. The actors are doing a very, very good job of playing these roles, and they're selling it very well. Focus not on the dialogue minutia, but on the way the characters are portraying the intent of the scene. That has always been Star Wars' jewel. And this is Star Wars once again playing around with the mystery. It is basically space samurai knights dealing with it's. I mean, like, okay, so my point I was trying to get at is that is Star Wars like, is this show? This show is basically tackling colonial intervention and the consequences of that. That is essentially the thesis of this show. Is it the best way to do it? Is it the best way it's ever been done? Is it the best way it ever will be done? No, by far. It could have. It is, and it suffers a lot from certain things. It suffers a lot from poor pacing, and things. But so does so much other fiction. It suffers a lot from poor decision making, and so does a lot of other fiction. It's like don't concern yourself with that, because that's not Star Wars. Isn't about telling this high art narrative. It's telling you a really simple one executed in a very Star Warsy way. Like, people are nitpicking, oh well, why didn't Saul just force lift up the children and bring them towards him? And there's, I can give you both a dualistic answer and a Watsonian answer. The Watsonian answer is because that's not what the story is about. We need a situation where Saul had to make a decision and had to choose a life over another life, and that has informed his decisions going forward in his guilt. And a lot of this story, a lot of this episode, is exploring the fact that a lot of the reasons why things went wrong is because Saul felt like he had a right over Osha. And that scene is the epitome of that decision-making process. Are there ways you could have done it where you could have, as a writer, there are ways you could have made that scene differently, where people would have made that complaint. But then you have to make the scene longer, you have to make it more complicated, you have to add more fluff into it. And writing 101 is execute your scene in the most simplest way possible to tell a message you are doing, because the second you add fluff that's not needed, you are detracting from the thesis of what you're writing. That is literally writing 101. Please, for the love of God, even if you hate it, read Snyder's Save a Cat, because it's like, at this point that should be obligatory reading for anyone wanting to do any media analysis on any work of fiction, any writing. Like, Saul had to let one of those kids die for his character to work, and there are other ways you could have done it, but then you're missing the trees for the wood, or wherever that phrase is meant to go. There's also the Watsonian reason behind this. I might have got my term mixed up earlier between dualistic and Watsonian. That was a dualistic reason I just did. The Watsonian reason also exists. Look, the Force is fictional. It's fictional. It doesn't exist. There is no real world equivalent of the Force. It is this mysterious telepathic ability that you train and has nuance, and there's a lot of mysticism around it. So it can work in a way whichever the writer does, and there's no consistency there. Maybe some people have better, people are like, oh well, if this Force user can do Force heal, why don't they all do Force heal? Why, if if Rey can Force heal a stab wound, and why didn't Obi-Wan do it to Qui-Gon? The same reason why I am a very well accomplished first aider and other people are not. The same reason why I got a distinction level on my journalism degree and other people did not. The reason why I won an award and other people not. This seems like I'm using excuse to flex, and maybe it is because it's my channel. But the point still is, in the words of Talos in Captain Marvel, it's a natural thing, but to a degree there's some skill and talent involved. Maybe everyone can Force heal to a degree, but some people have more natural aptitude towards it, and some people just practice it more. Like, the Force doesn't need to be consistent. It doesn't exist in real life for you to have any. You just have to, and that's a very easy way for writers to be like. And so much Star Wars is based on the idea of the Force having a will, and it choosing when to work and when not to work. Maybe I can easily believe a situation where holding something up is easier than holding it up and dragging it towards you, because instead of doing two things, you're doing one thing. In fact, it's just actually from physics that's actually easier. It's easier to hold something up than hold it up and move it. I think if I remember my momentum formula correctly. So maybe it was easy, and there was nothing stopping these kids from going back the way they came, just that they were kids and they were focusing on each other. So maybe Saul was like, "I'll hold the bridge up long enough, they might move," but then it was clear that they weren't going to, and so he had to make a decision. Like, there's your answer. Done. We're done. Issue over. Sorry, I just had to fart. So yeah, we get to see the other side of this, where, and the other thing is like, why didn't the mother lead with the fact that she was gonna give Osha over to Saul, because then she could avoid all the conflict. I mean, firstly, she didn't get a chance to. Like there was people. I don't know how closely people are watching this episode, but the space between her arriving and then May arriving and being the open match to trigger the explosion, metaphorically, or I guess also literally, but was like less than a minute. And it's very much in character for the mother character to come on and basically, she's a leader, she's a politician, she has this theatrics about her. But also it makes sense. Like, she's about to give her child over to this institution she doesn't like. So she's not going to be happy about it. And she's going to want to, impart some wisdom or impart some biting critique to hopefully inspire them to look after her daughter correctly. And that's what she's doing. She's coming along and she's calling out their entitlement by basically breaking into the house again, not even waiting for an answer. Like, bear in mind, that's what a Jedi had just done. Like, they didn't even give the courtesy of this mother about to give her child to have the space to do that. They literally break into the house and be like, okay, time to go. Like, I'm not even a parent, and I think I'd be pissed off if that happened. So obviously, so she's using the moment to criticize the Jedi because she's about to give them her child, and obviously she wants to kind of, say things, get them to kind of think about things so that they will be a better guardian for her children. And the words she's saying are effective towards that. And there is this, and undoubtedly had that conversation been unchallenged. Also, she was also de-escalating the situation. I don't know why people blame her for escalating the situation. She comes in, she's calm. She explains her points calmly, but pointedly. She, And then as she's speaking, Saul doesn't even bring up Osha. He wants to know where Osha came from, because he's clocked on, or they've all clocked on to the fact that then the twins are artificially created, which visibly causes both the mothers to be like, ooh, they know about something they shouldn't know about, which puts them in the back foot. And then May runs in and asks for help, and the mother panics. And she panics because she's in a very, she's holding a lot of her emotions together. But in that moment, her child comes and begs for help. And she's shown to be she cares a lot about what her children want and stuff. So she panics and then does a thing which, again, tying into this colonial narrative, Saul doesn't understand. And so he acts rationally in a way which is not inconsistent with how other Jedi act. Jedi have been known to be rash. And then that triggers the conflict and everything goes to crap and there's not really time for anything else to happen. It's like, at what point? If you, in a negotiation scene, you don't put all your cards on the table from the get-go. If the mother would rather be like, oh, Osha's coming with you, then that you're giving all the power to Saul. In that instant, you're giving all the power to Jedi. And the mother wants to hold on to her power for as long as she can, so she can use that moment to try and safeguard her child's future. This is like, it's basic media literacy. How are people not getting this? Why are you so keen to criticize when you can just explain? We also get another side of Indara, who we've had limited viewpoints of this point, but now we get to see more of her. And I like people that are kind of pointing out actually her entire deal is basically being the only woman in a team of men trying to stop a bunch of men from doing the wrong thing. I mean, to be fair, Kolkata does nothing wrong except being possessed, so he's excused. But her entire thing is and some points out, she clocks on to Saul's desire to be an interventionist, even at the risk of harming people, and warns him against it multiple times as the voice of reason. Um, and does a pretty good job of it. But fortunately, Saul just ignores it or doesn't get the message, and then he learns his mistake far too late. If at all he ever does learn his mistake, we've yet to see kind of the consequences of that in full force. And we also get kind of we get a very good kind of look into why. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. The kid to Padawan ends up the way he ends up, and it's actually kind of a fairly tragic outcome for him, where he's just young and naive and homesick and is very vulnerable, easy to manipulate. The Wookiee Jedi fight scene was brutal. I still love kind of Saul's very kind of careful way of fighting, where he's deliberate with his strikes and in a way which kind of, you know, controls movement and the momentum of the fight, uses the momentum of the fight to do precision strikes. I really appreciate that just as a martial artist. It's really fun to watch. Also, it's such a brilliant kind of like bit of visual storytelling that up until this point we notably, it's not ever commented on, not explicit. That's the thing, the show is giving you more credit than the audience is kind of giving it credit for. At no point is their character being like, "Hey Saul, I've noticed you don't really draw your lightsaber a lot," but the audience has noticed, and then we get the reason for it. Why? Because the one time he drew his lightsaber too rashly, it caused loads of deaths. And that's brilliant visual storytelling. This show is not getting the credit it deserves, to be frank. Okay, I have got to go react to 3 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy and 2 trailers, and then I've got to do a report, and then I want to get on my annual leave. So I think I've made some good enough points already in this video, so I'm going to end it there and jump straight into a stream for Prodigy. Do I bother going to get my Starfleet uniform on? I guess. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in, and if you give me about 5 minutes, I'll be back for my next video. So, bye-bye.